How many hours do you write every day?
At the moment, not enough. I'm waiting for my next strike of inspiration to happen, quite honestly, because my life has been, unfortunately, there's a lot of admin still going on with SHUROO. We're starting a podcast in the new year, and I'm the kind, as I said, my process of writing is once I've decided on the next thing I'm going to write, I will probably take 2 or 3 months off or longer to write it. But I'm not quite there yet. I'm still, we're still promoting the Shuru process. Idlewild Pictures is my production company. We've just recently sold a podcast called Historical Homos with Zachary Quinto around the world in 80 gays, because a lot of history has been straightwashed, and it's going to be really, really interesting. We're doing 48 episodes with Stitcher. So that's something I'm heavily involved with as a producer, and that'll be really fun. So we're going to be doing that next year. We've got three or four other films on our slate that I'm producing on, but I haven't actually figured out what my next directing job will be. But I'm okay with that. It's I don't want to push that because it's so challenging directing that I have to really want to do it, and I'm waiting for that story to bubble up. But I do think next year it's going to come. I already have some ideas. I just haven't committed to them yet. And I think I'd like to finish this Shuru journey, which we're so close to finishing, and maybe take a bit of time to decompress and then figure out, what story I'm burning to tell.
Was that something you were aware of, is how much waiting you would be doing when you came here in 2008?
I don't feel like I'm waiting that much because I do enjoy life. I think it's really important to have balance, and have other interests. I love doing lots of other things that aren't in the entertainment industry. I love surfing, I love snowboarding, I love traveling, I love camping, I love nature. There's a lot of things I enjoy. I love working out. I still love dancing. Because if it was just entertainment, I probably would feel like I'm waiting around a lot. But yeah, the post-production in the Shuru process was the hardest thing I've ever done. I thought the filming was hard, but post-production was just really hard. We started in New York, and then unfortunately my very dear friend and one of the investors passed away, who I was living with. We shared an apartment. So that just threw me off. I don't want to cry, but it was just really, really upsetting. And I had to move out of the apartment, and I had to start all over again in LA. And then COVID happened, and then it was just the world turned upside down, and I was just like, "What the hell?" Our editor got sent back to Australia with the film footage, and it was just like it was a disaster, and it was very frustrating. But I think I had to go through that. It was one of these things where I didn't really know how to navigate post-production, and now I have a much better idea. So I'm kind of grateful for the challenges in a way, even though looking back on it, it was an absolute nightmare, but I'm kind of grateful I had to go through that because now I have a much deeper understanding and knowledge of the whole post-production process, the tax credits, the coloring, the sound design, all those different elements that I didn't really understand. I had to almost teach myself on the job.
So if you approach it as a director again, what things do you think you'll implement, like getting more coverage of something, or knowing like you can't necessarily always fix it in post, sort of the cliche saying that may or may
I
not be
would
true?
100% have a post-production supervisor on from the beginning whilst shooting. So then you can prep the footage and have everything ready for post. Don't bring the post-production. And also the post-production supervisor should be looking at the budget, because a lot of the time the line producer won't necessarily put the right amounts of money and allocate always, because they kind of, once the movie's finished, the line producer normally leaves, and then you've got your post-production supervisor, and most of the time you've not got enough money for post. So if you have a post-production supervisor from the start, you're going to have a much smoother journey. And shooting the movie is only the third of the process. So if you have a post-production supervisor, and I've got a great one, so I'm going to use him again if he'll have me, I just think it'd be a much smoother journey. You'll be much more organized. And yeah, I've heard a lot of people have a nightmare on post, and unfortunate, a lot of people take advantage of filmmakers in post because they know that you have to, that you're kind of stuck. So it's a very unfortunate situation because a lot of indie movie makers end up they have an amazing product, and then post, they don't have the money to quite finish it to where the standard they should be getting it. We were so lucky. We got great people, color, we got amazing sound design, we got amazing composers. I mean, I really did luck out for the budget. We got really good people involved. So I'm so grateful that we just managed to get people that believed in the film, and a much higher level than what we probably would get for that budget. We got very lucky. I mean, maybe it was because of COVID, I don't know.
How do you decide which movie ideas to work on and which to throw away?
Good question. For me, I'm kind of turned on by movies that talk about areas of life that aren't normally spoken about as much, and that I feel people need to know about. So I'm interested in talking about areas of life normally that I've experienced myself, that I think I have a good understanding, and that's why I should be getting behind them. I haven't got to the point where I'm doing sci-fi and like things like that I just don't necessarily think I'm there yet. I'm not ruling anything out, because I think that as a director, there could be a time where I'm like, oh, I've got this idea and I'm going to go with it. But right now, I think my skill as a filmmaker is sharing things that I've witnessed or experienced myself. So if the idea is something too contrived, or something I feel like I'm just trying to be commercial and trying to make money, then it has to feel authentic. It has to feel very real to me. If it feels manufactured or inauthentic, then I'm not going to go with it.
Do you remember some of the first movies that you saw, aside from James Bond, where you felt that they pushed the envelope and that you really got a good look into a certain world that maybe audiences, some would be shocked by, some would rejoice in because they were speaking the truth?
So one of the first movies that I remember being blown away by and wanting to be a filmmaker, I didn't even know what directing was, but I watched The Evil Dead when I was maybe 11. And I remember just being like blown away by it. It was so wild and like out there and exciting and scary that I thought that's what I want to do. And I didn't kind of know how I was going to do it, but I remember thinking, wow, like that's creating something like that, how cool. But at that age, I think I was probably 10 or 11, I really didn't know much about that. But then I think I got a camera and I started making my own little like Blair Witch style movies and stuff. Yeah, so I was definitely inspired by Sam Raimi. That was one of the first filmmakers, and then Stanley Kubrick. I remember watching the Secret Garden. That was the first movie I saw on the big screen. Jurassic Park I saw, and I was just blown away by it. So yeah, as I said before, my life was not that exciting in Devon, but going to the movies was the most exciting experience I had like all month, and it didn't happen very often, but I looked forward to it.